Part 65. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 641. Chapter 641 Extra, Fu Dange. My name is Fu Dange, and my brother Fu Danking is the emperor's companion since childhood, and is highly valued by the emperor. I met him when the emperor was still the prince. But I was young at that time and didn't know the taste of love. I just thought that the prince was like a god. At a young age, he had a different temperament and pressure from his peers. The person my brother admired most was the prince. I knew that the prince would become the emperor in the future, and he soon became the emperor. At the age of 17, he became the king of a country, ruling over all the people, and was unparalleled in dignity. I have never seen such a good-looking emperor, like a nobleman walking out of an ancient scroll, with the handsomeness and nobility of a gentleman, but more of a rock-like temperament than a nobleman. My brother has been his companion since childhood, and there are 3 other companions with him. Whenever there is a happy event in the companion's family, the emperor will always come to congratulate in person. The friendship between the monarch and his subjects is enviable. The more he comes, the more I see him. However, girls are not allowed to see men outside their family. I would occasionally stand behind the screen and secretly look at what the emperor, who was admired by my brother as a god, looked like. Later, I looked at him again and again, and accidentally fell in love. However, since I was a teenager, I always had the same dream at night, every now and then, intermittently, and the scenes in the dream seemed real and fake, which made me restless day and night. I dreamed that I became the queen, and that my father became a powerful official, and later became a treacherous official. They even wanted to kill the king. I began to feel anxious and uneasy. This dream was like a mountain pressing on my heart, making me unable to distinguish between truth and falsehood, and making me breathless. So that every time I saw the emperor later, I felt a heavy sense of guilt. He was a bright and clear man, an emperor with profound virtues. His pressure and his demeanor made me respect and love him. But I knew that there would be no result between him and me, and there could be no result. Ever since I was haunted by the nightmare, I was afraid to see him again. Every time he came home, I hid far away. I was afraid that the things in the dream would come true, so I didn't dare to take risks. Once I heard him ask his elder brother, "Don't you have a sister? Why is there no one every time you come?" Her elder brother replied, "Maybe she is shy." I couldn't help but panic and hid quickly. My mother saw my thoughts and tried every means to make me meet him. I resisted her ideas, but I couldn't avoid the encounters she made every time. That time, my panicked look aroused the emperor's suspicion. The concern and worry hidden in his eyes made me feel guilty, so I hid more and more panicked, but I didn't know at that time that the more I did so, the more worried he was, and then he became suspicious. For a while, he even suspected that I was abused at home, otherwise, a legitimate daughter of a minister's family would not be so uneasy. He was a kind and tolerant king. He would never be suspicious and doubtful without authorization. He would only think that I had encountered something difficult to solve. But that dream, if I tell it out loud, will it be a lie to confuse the public? Will it implicate the entire Fu family? Will it implicate my brother? Will it bring the Fu family into an irreparable disaster? I didn't dare to take the risk. Even though he was so good, good enough to make me feel heartbroken every night, I didn't dare to hurt him a little bit. Later, the development of things was out of control. I couldn't help falling in love with him. I was flustered, nervous, worried and anxious, all because of him. I couldn't tell anyone the secret in my heart. I lost myself day by day until I saw him again on my father's birthday that year. His tone was so gentle, "If you have any difficulties that are not convenient to tell your family, you can tell me, maybe I can help you." I ran away, and ran away in a mess. I didn't see his frown behind me, and the hidden worry in his eyes. But I didn't escape that night. My mother put drugs in my food and water, and designed to lure the emperor over. I lost my virginity in a daze. There was a moment of clarity when I wanted to resist, but the short-term selfishness and the drug made me give up. I only knew that when I woke up in the middle of the night, I was still afraid of how he would look at me, but I heard his voice was still so gentle and tolerant. "I will marry you into the palace and make you the queen. Do you think it's okay?" As an emperor, when he encountered such a thing in the home of a minister, he did not first question whose conspiracy it was, but came to comfort my emotions. I don't know what kind of man he is. At that moment, I was deeply ashamed of myself. I knew I was not worthy of him. He was a man who stood in the clouds and was unparalleled and noble, and he should be matched with an equally noble woman. If the dream was true, I might put him in danger. No, my refusal was obviously beyond his expectation. A look of astonishment rarely appeared on his face, but he quickly asked me softly, "Why?" I lowered my head, not daring to let him see my panic and embarrassment, and tried to remain calm. "This is just an accident, the emperor does not need to take it to heart. I can't enter the palace, I can't be the queen, I must not let everything in my dream happen. So be it. Whether it is a conspiracy or willing, I have already been marked by him, and I will never marry anyone else from now on. I just want to guard this small world and live my life quietly. He will marry a noble and dignified daughter of a big family as the queen, and can be canonized in the 6 palaces. It is nothing to favor a minister's daughter. For the emperor, such a thing is really nothing. But he said, my family rules are very strict. I have had physical contact with you, but I don't give you a name. If my parents know about it, the consequences will be very serious. I know that Her Majesty and the regent abdicated early, but I have no idea about family rules." Hearing this, I subconsciously made a promise: "You and I know this matter, and we will never let a third person know. Your Majesty, please rest assured that I will never tell anyone, not even my brother and parents." Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The emperor looked at me with a silent and inquiring look, and said after a long time, "How can you explain to outsiders that you, a pure and innocent girl, have lost your virginity?" I answered, "No need to explain, no one will know." But things did not go as planned. When my period was delayed for half a month, I was flustered and distracted all day long. It was delayed for 2 months and accompanied by nausea and vomiting. I knew I was pregnant. This conclusion was like a club, hitting me dizzy and dazed. I had a poor appetite, was often sleepy, and could not stand the smell of meat. My mother was an experienced person and soon noticed my abnormality. She asked me whose child was in my belly, and with a look of confidence, "Is it the emperor's child?" No, I would never admit it. That night, she drugged me, and we both pretended to be confused, but since the window paper was not broken, I had no reason to admit who the father of the child was. My mother did not give up, and she repeatedly questioned, threatened, and induced, and even resorted to the trick of pity. She knew who it was, but she insisted that she say it herself. Want her to admit it in person? She didn't want to do what she wanted. This child is not the emperor's. If mother leaks a little, the crime of deceiving the emperor will be exterminated. This was the first time I spoke to her so coldly. Father's career and elder brother's career will be ruined. Mother left in anger. I stroked my belly gently, and my heart was in turmoil for a while. My heart was fermenting with all kinds of tastes, both sour and sweet. The emperor soon learned the news. In the dead of night, he came to see me under the cover of his brother. "Why didn't you tell me that you were pregnant?" I looked at the young king's noble and handsome face, and I wanted to throw myself into his arms. If possible, who doesn't want to be tender and affectionate with their beloved husband, accompanying them day and night? But I didn't dare. I didn't dare to promise him. I knew he was a man worth entrusting my life to. How many women in the imperial capital were in love with him and looked forward to entering the palace to serve the king every day? I shouldn't have selfishly put him in danger, and shouldn't have occupied his position in the harem with a mood of worrying about gains and losses. Even if that nightmare might be just fake, even if such a thing happened, he would have the ability to control the overall situation and deal with everything. But I still didn't dare to take risks. "I will make you the queen," the emperor said. "Danking is a minister I trust, and your father's official position is enough. The child in your belly cannot be without a name, and I can't let you bear strange eyes without a name." I still refused, and shaking my head became my only answer: "I won't enter the palace." The emperor frowned. "Why?" "I don't want to enter the palace." "You can tell me any hidden worries and concerns." "What should I say?" "Say that if I enter the palace, my father will become the uncle of the emperor, and his ambition will expand and become a traitor in the future." "I dare not say such unfounded things. If I say it, it will put the Fu family to death, but what if the things in the dream really happen? I can't watch him fall into danger, and I don't want to watch the Fu family be doomed." I was caught in a dilemma and could only refuse again and again. "Don't you like me?" The emperor looked at her and couldn't help but guess. "Someone plotted against you that night." I shook my head. "I like you." The plot was true, and the love was true. He would not know how deep and deep my love for him was, and how long I had liked him. It was because I liked him so much that I engraved his eyebrows and eyes into my heart. He obviously liked me, but he just didn't want to enter the palace. Even the wise and intelligent emperor couldn't figure out what I was struggling with. I thought he would give up persuading me soon, and when the harem had a queen and concubines, and 3,000 beauties, he would forget about me, a woman who didn't know how to promote herself, but I had no idea. In the following years, I experienced giving birth to a child. My reputation was damaged, I was ridiculed, and I endured rumors, all kinds of things that made people exhausted, but he never left and never gave up persuading me to enter the palace. He even tried to find out the reason why I didn't want to enter the palace again and again without getting tired of it. But I have never told anyone the secret in my heart, so how could he know? Living alone in a courtyard, I took care of my little child, taught him to read and write every day, and looked at him. It seemed that I had a place to live for the rest of my life. The rumors outside could not hurt me because I stayed at home. My mother lost patience with my stubbornness and stopped bothering me. I enjoyed the quiet and the time I spent with this child who looked like him. I could often see his shadow from his eyebrows and eyes, which was enough to make me feel a little satisfied. He named the child Chinsi, as if he was telling me his attitude in this way. That year, the arrival of Empress Ziki brought a turning point in my life. It turned out that things could be solved. I didn't understand how a girl of 16 or 17 could be so wise. I had been struggling for several years, and the problems that had made me suffer countless times, she seemed to not care at all. A few words of light advice made me suddenly enlightened. In fact, as long as my father was placed in a nominal position, and he was not given the opportunity to expand and abuse his power, nothing would happen. Since I love him, I should trust him. Why should I bear the problem alone when we can solve it together? Why should I let him worry and be anxious? He is the king of a country. He has a say in the temple. He can easily decide the life and death of people in the world. He is confident and his imperial majesty is admirable. Is there anything he can't solve? I suddenly realized that things can be so simple. I became his queen. Although I occasionally dreamed of such scenes in recent years, which made me wake up in fear in the middle of the night, I clearly realized that my father was just a nominal uncle of the country. He had no real power and the things in the dream would not happen. A loving couple and a pair of children are the happiness I have imagined in my dreams many times. Now I am happy and happy. The person I should thank most is Queen Ziki, my sister. The second person I should thank is Lulu. She gave me a reassurance and told me that nightmares are just nightmares and will never happen. The huge rock that had been weighing on my heart for many years fell to the ground, and I could finally breathe a sigh of relief, and told myself in my heart that I must love him twice as much for the rest of my life, make up for him, and use love to make up for all the youth I wasted because of my stupidity and stubbornness in the past few years. I am glad that I fell in love with such a man with a broad mind. I am happy that my son and daughter have such a father. I am even more glad that I have such a wise and decisive empress sister and a smart and kind sister-in-law. Having them is the greatest wealth in my life. I think I must have been a person who did great good in my previous life, so I have such great luck and blessings in this life. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 642. At the end of March, Chu Qinghuang and Fukang passed by a small town with simple folk customs called Ryuan. There was a man in the city whose daughter was throwing hydrangeas to attract marriage. The small street was crowded with people, all young men. Chu Qinghuang thought it was quite interesting, so she decided to join in the fun with Fukang, and settled down in a small town to rest for the night. This time when they returned to Beijing, they left Jinyu behind in Kangyun Mountain, so the two of them rode on horseback. For convenience, Chu Qinghuang dressed in men's clothing all the way. At this time, he got off the horse and walked with Fukang to a crowded place, almost without a trace. People noticed them. Everyone's eyes were focused on the woman who was about to throw the hydrangea on the second floor. Because Chu Qinghuang was dressed in men's clothing, even if someone accidentally glanced at her, they would just think that they were all men who came to grab the hydrangea. So Chu Qinghuang and Fukang successfully stood on the crowded street and looked up at the young girl holding a hydrangea on the second floor. The first impression is quite beautiful. Such a woman needs to throw hydrangea to attract a bride. Chu Qinghuang was just joining in the fun and had no intention of grabbing the hydrangeas with others. However, the crowd did not pay attention to her and Fukang, which did not mean that the young lady on the second floor did not notice. Standing at a high place, you have a good view, and you can see the two most outstanding young men in the crowd at a glance. With such an outstanding appearance and good demeanor, it makes people feel amazing at a glance. Fukang was keenly aware of where the girl's gaze was, and frowned slightly. He was about to turn around and say something, but saw the red hydrangea flying towards Chu Qinghuang as if it had eyes. Chu Qinghuang subconsciously reached out and took it, and then realized something was wrong. Did she catch the hydrangea? Turning his head to meet Fukang's astonished eyes, Chu Qinghuang followed the mistake for a moment, and the scene seemed to quiet down instantly. The men who were originally noisy reaching out to grab the hydrangeas all turned to look at the two of them. What was even more speechless was that several people from the family soon came out and swarmed towards Chu Qinghuang. "Excuse me, may I ask this young master's name and where he comes from? Young master has such good temperament and good looks. He must come from a wealthy family. I wonder where the young master is from. Can you tell me your name and origin? This young master is very handsome. He is not from Ryuan. My lady invites you. The young master has caught the hydrangea, and he will be my uncle from now on. I also invite the young master to come in and speak." The men present all looked at Chu Qinghuang with envy and jealousy, wondering where this brat came from. How dare he rob them of their good deeds? In the expectant eyes of the servants and the resentful eyes of the onlookers, Chu Qinghuang felt for the first time in his life that he had made an own mistake. Suddenly feeling that the hydrangea in his hand was a hot potato, Chu Qinghuang said, "This is a misunderstanding." As soon as he finished speaking, Fu Kang took the hydrangea directly, raised his hand and threw it towards the second floor. In the blink of an eye, the hydrangea flew back into the young lady's arms as if it had eyes. Fu Kang took Chu Qinghuang's hand and said, "She is not your lover. This was a wrong choice. You can try it again." The servants were stunned, and so were the people watching. Probably no one expected this to happen, and they all shouted, "What are you doing? Are you here to cause trouble on purpose? Since you have no intention of marrying Miss Lin, why do you want to take the hydrangea? It's just baffling." "No. Since the young master has caught the hydrangea, it proves that you are the destined husband of my young lady. The young master must give up this marriage, otherwise he may not be able to leave our city." A man who looked like a housekeeper hurriedly walked to Chu Qing in front of Huang. He raised his hand and waved, and all the servants behind him immediately came out. There were actually 7 or 8 people. Well, Yuan Wei's family background in the small town was pretty good, but compared to the serious guards of the powerful families in the imperial capital, these servants were really not good enough. This young master, the housekeeper, saw the 2 people's outstanding appearance and noble bearing. He was polite at first. Anyone who walks on this street on the day when my lady throws the hydrangea will assume that they are here to grab the hydrangea. Since the young master, if you catch the hydrangea, it's time for my young lady to get married." Fu Kang flatly refused, "No." Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows and looked at the crowded battle in front of him. Although he was a little speechless, what did these men look like? Like he was jealous that she had snatched the hydrangea, and was angry that she was unwilling to marry Miss Lin? "Take them down," the housekeeper ordered coldly. "If the young master who takes the hydrangea is unwilling to marry my lady, he can be beaten to death with sticks according to the rules." Beaten to death with sticks? Fu Kang's brows suddenly turned cold, and murderous intent instantly emerged. The cold aura made the housekeeper and AI across from him shudder, and they subconsciously took 2 steps back. "You, what do you want to do? Are you still making fun of my young lady? I'm telling you dash." "Shut up." Chu Qinghuang raised her hand gently and said 2 words calmly. The pressure in her eyes made the butler opposite unconsciously shut up. "This matter is our fault. I can explain it to your lady," Chu Qinghuang said. "We can also make some compensation." After all, they were indeed in the wrong, and taking the hydrangea but not being willing to marry it might damage the honor of their daughter's family. Chu Qinghuang doesn't care about her reputation, but she knows that women in the world value reputation more than their lives, so she must give an explanation to others. "The only compensation is that you marry my young lady." The housekeeper refused to give in. "Please come in immediately and discuss the marriage with my master." Miss Lin, standing behind the railing on the second floor, holding the returned hydrangea, quietly watched Chu Qinghuang and Fu Kang downstairs. Her eyes fell on their clasped hands, thinking, "I know why he doesn't want to marry me." "Miss," the maid next to Miss Lin spoke up for her, "how many men in the town dream of marrying you? This man is really ungrateful." "Maybe he really didn't mean it." Lin Xiao, the elder sister, found a reasonable excuse for the handsome young man's behavior. "Look at these 2 people, they are so handsome, like noble young men who walked out of the painting. We don't have such people here, so they should have come from other places, maybe just happened to pass by and don't know much about our customs." The maid was angry, but if he accepted the embroidery ball and didn't marry the young lady would be laughed at. "How serious is it?" Miss Lin's eyes showed a bit of strange color. "I can't break up a pair of lovers because of an embroidery ball." "Lovers?" The maid was puzzled. Miss Lin twitched her chin. "Look at their tightly clasped hands, they look like a pair of lovers, and their feelings are particularly deep." The maid followed her gaze and saw that it was true. She opened her mouth in astonishment. They are all men. There are many kinds of feelings in the world. This kind of love that is not afraid of the secular world may really be because of the deep and heavy love." Miss Lin automatically outlined a vigorous love story in her mind, and she really admired their courage. They may have experienced many difficulties and obstacles, endured the strange eyes and abuse of the secular world, and went through many hardships and obstacles to get together. I can't be a bad person who breaks them up. The maid's expression is simply hard to describe. Her young lady always has strange ideas. Obviously, it is something that the secular world does not tolerate, but in her eyes, it has become a love stronger than gold, which is touching. But the young lady is kind-hearted. Whoever can marry his young lady in the future will be blessed for 3 generations. Miss Lin quickly ordered, "Tell the housekeeper to invite these 2 young masters to the tea room for tea, and be nice. I will go there later." The maid frowned. "What about today's ball throwing?" "Toss it another day." Miss Lin turned and walked into the house, obviously not caring. "There are so many people in the city who want to marry me. I am not unmarried. I can throw the ball whenever I want." The maid sighed. "It's all because the master has spoiled his young lady to be like this. She is simply lawless. Even her lifelong affairs are so casual, and she is not in a hurry at all. And these young men in the city treat the young lady like a goddess. They come to show their courtesy every now and then, and spoil the young lady. I don't know which young man will marry her in the future and coax, worship, and pamper her like a sweetheart. It's really a headache." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 643. Chu Qing Huang and Fukang were quickly invited to the tea room by the housekeeper. With a thumping sound, Miss Lin stepped down the wooden stairs and looked at the 2 young masters with a smile on her face. "You 2 gentlemen, please have tea. Don't worry, I won't add medicine to the tea. I will throw hydrangeas today. You don't have to take it to heart. I will never force you to marry me." Miss the housekeeper interrupted her, angrily. "These 2 are so abominable. Since you have no intention of marrying the lady, why did you come to pick up the hydrangeas? Isn't this intentional to cause trouble?" Chu Qing Huang sighed. "If this were in the imperial capital, in the palace, who would dare to talk to her like this? This matter is a misunderstanding." Fukang looked at the irritable housekeeper coldly. "We can compensate your young lady. Just ask for any amount of money you need." "Does my young lady lack money?" "What she lacks is a husband." Miss Lin said helplessly. "Housekeeper, go and invite my father over. If he continues to be so irritable, the good-tempered noble master will probably become angry." The housekeeper looked at his lady with hatred, turned and left. The housekeeper is ignorant and frightened the 2 young masters. Miss Lin poured the tea herself, held it up and apologized to the 2 of them. "Don't worry about throwing the hydrangea. Anyway, I will hold such an event every once in a while. Although this young man is a man of great talent and makes me excited, I won't do anything to beat a mandarin duck." Chu Qing Huang and Fukang looked at each other silently, secretly thinking that this Miss Lin family looked like an interesting woman. "But it's held every once in a while." Chu Qing Huang raised an eyebrow. "Tossing hydrangeas to attract brides, isn't it just a matter of getting them? There are so many men in the city waiting to marry me. If hydrangea is taken by someone I don't like, how can I marry him?" Miss Lin's tone was so matter-of-fact that Chu Qing Huang felt like she was in another world. "Kingdom, they don't mind anyway." Chu Qing Huang said. "If someone receives a hydrangea, if you don't marry him, won't he be angry?" "Probably not," Miss Lin said with a smile. "They all prefer to see me marry someone they like, although so far, among so many men, none of them has made me fall in love at first sight." "I see." Then they were relieved. Fukang coughed lightly. Chu Qing Huang understood the sound and quickly stood up. "In that case, let's take our leave first. Let's just treat today as a misunderstanding dash." "Sir, please wait a moment." "No more waiting. Chu Qing Huang and Fukang walked out in perfect agreement. Miss Lin chased after them and shouted, "Sir, I will not break you up. I admire your courage." The two of them walked quickly out of the Lin family's gate. With a few taps of their toes, they passed over the crowd of spectators, got on their horses, and galloped away. The original plan to rest in Ryuan for one night was cancelled. Miss Lin chased out with small steps, but only saw two horses galloping away. She hesitated for a while. "I said I won't separate you, why are you leaving in such a hurry? Why don't you stay and have a meal? Let's go before dinner." In all her life, she has never seen such an outstanding man. Miss the maid chased after her. Seeing her like this, she thought she was sad. "Miss, there is no need to feel sorry for such an ungrateful person." "You don't understand," Miss Lin said melancholy. "I'm not sad, I just hope they can stay and have a meal before leaving. After all, I have never seen such an honest relationship between two men in my life." Miss Lin's melancholy had already fallen behind her, so naturally Chu Qing Huang and Fukang didn't hear her. The two of them galloped for 20 miles before slowing down. Fukang held the reins and turned to look at Chu Qing Huang, who also looked at him. With a puff, the two laughed. "I didn't expect that one day Nuan would fall in love with a woman at first sight," Fukang said with some taste. "Try not to go out as much as possible in the future." Chu Qing Huang squinted at him. Miss Lin regarded the two of us as Duangziu. Fukang was stunned. "Ah! Didn't you hear it?" Fukang was silent for a moment. "I'm still wondering how she could say the words beat the Mandarin ducks with a stick, so that's it?" "It's because I'm too powerful." Chu Qing Huang touched her face. "So it's not against the rules at all for a woman to dress up as a man?" Fukang tilted his head, with a smile in his eyes. "The warmth is so powerful that women will not think you are a woman when you are dressing up as a man. Men must also surrender when dressing up as a woman. Only you can speak." Chu Qing Huang was rarely arrogant. "If you can speak, speak more." As commanded. So Fukang racked his brains and flattered her along the way, and only praised Chu Qing Huang to such an extent that she was like the only legendary goddess in the world who was unparalleled in the sky. Chu Qing Huang was also impressed by what he heard. He completely put aside the majesty of Her Majesty the Queen and squeezed out all the vocabulary that the royal concubine had. $window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 644. In mid-April, Chu Qing Huang and Fukang returned to Ziki. The weather is getting hotter, and pedestrians on the road have taken off their spring shirts and put on summer clothes. The gentlemen are all wearing flowing light robes, and the women are wearing flowing skirts of various colors and styles. The scenery on the long street is beautiful, and the clothes are bright. Compared with a few years ago, there were obviously many more boudoir women walking around on the long street. When Her Majesty the Queen is in power, even if there are no explicit legal provisions, the status of women will be greatly improved invisibly. Fukang looked at the scene of busy traffic on the street, both men and women. It is no longer the time when women stayed at home. It shows that women are willing to accept changes in their hearts these years. Before Chu Qing Huang ascended the throne, women from major aristocratic families would only show up at banquets or poetry and song activities organized by someone. Usually they could only relax through poetry gatherings, tea parties, and flower appreciation banquets. On weekdays, I never leave the house or take a step outside. The only time I can go to the market is because my father is very open-minded. Nowadays, women can be seen hanging out on the streets at any time. Young women can be seen everywhere in rouge and gouache shops, ready-made clothing shops, and jewelry pavilions. Even medical clinics can recruit female apprentices, and no one will accuse them of being unruly and unruly. The two of them quickly arrived outside the palace gate, and saw Chu Xuanyi waiting for them in front of the palace gate from a distance, with a group of guards standing behind him. Chu Qinghuang and Fukang approached on horseback, and the imperial guards still looked at them warily. Until they recognized Fukang and saw Her Majesty the Queen disguised as a man, they all knelt down at once. "See Her Majesty the Queen, see Your Majesty the Emperor." Chu Qinghuang got off his horse and raised his hand to signal, "No courtesy." Chu Xuanyi escorted the two of them into the palace, and said disapprovingly as he walked, "Your Majesty and the imperial concubine are going on a long trip, and there are too few people with them. What if they encounter danger along the way? Currently, as long as it is not a planned assassination, there is probably no master in this world who can defeat me and Fukang at the same time." Chu Qinghuang said, "Don't worry." What she didn't add was that even if they existed, they were all members of her own family. Nowadays, all the countries in the world are in peace, the princes of the Western Qi dynasty have no power to struggle, and there are even fewer people who can accurately know the whereabouts of Chu Qinghuang and Fukang. Therefore, it can be concluded that assassination almost never happens. So what are you doing with so many experts? Chu Xuanyi knew that he was no match for Her Majesty the Queen, but he still couldn't help but said, "It's still necessary just in case." Chu Qinghuang nodded, "I will pay attention next time." Chu Xuanyi then shut up. "What happened in the DPRK recently?" Chu Xuanyi said, "Everything in the government affairs is normal, but General Qi Ling sent a memorial. After reading it, my father put it aside and did not deal with it yet. Although King Rong temporarily took over the affairs of state, the matter of bringing the border generals back to Beijing was not a trivial matter, and he had no right to make the decision. Besides, the person Qi Ling wants to see when he comes back is Her Majesty the Queen. While Her Majesty the Queen is not in the palace, he will not see anyone when he comes back." Chu Qinghuang asked, "What did the memorial say?" Chu Xuanyi said, "He wants to return to Beijing to report on his duties, and also ask Your Majesty to grant him a marriage." Chu Qinghuang was slightly surprised, then nodded, "I understand. If the general stationed at the border does not have a decree, he cannot return to the capital without authorization under ordinary circumstances. He must ask for instructions before returning, or he must be recalled by the king's decree. After Qi Ling took over his father's official position, he only came back once. He came back to report on his work after defeating the northern Xinjiang army. He didn't live in the imperial city for long. After giving a truthful statement on the border situation, he quickly returned to the border. When they arrived at Changming Palace, Chu Xuanyi did not follow him in. Yuan Bao led the palace people to greet him from a distance. "Your Majesty the Queen, my lord, you are back." "I want to die dash." "You want to die?" Fukang frowned. Yuan Bao choked and shook his head repeatedly, "No, I don't want to die." What he wanted to say was that this servant misses you so much, but the emperor doesn't seem to like this, so Yuan Bao quickly ordered the palace servants to make tea, prepare water and towels, and wait for Her Majesty the Queen and the emperor to wash and change clothes. Chu Qinghuang heard what Yuan Bao wanted to say, looked at him with a half-smile, walked to the window and sat down on the brocade couch. "Your Majesty must be tired." Yuan Bao came over and squeezed her shoulders diligently. "I am here to serve Your Majesty." "You don't need to wait for me." Fukang walked over and pulled him to the side. "I'll do it." Yuan Bao froze. It was hard for him to meet the emperor's wife, so he thought of letting the emperor sit next to him and take a rest. He didn't want to be attentive but used it in the wrong place. Well, the royal wife is too jealous, he should have known it. Okay. Chu Qinghuang grabbed Fukang's hand, raised her eyes slightly, and raised a smile on her lips. "After returning to the palace covered with wind and dust, the first thing I do is take a bath." Fukang pursed his lips, and a smile appeared on the corners of his li. "After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 645. Chu Qing Huang and Fukang had just finished bathing and were about to have a meal when they received news that Hong Yu had returned to the imperial city. He came alone. After successfully entering the palace, he arrived at Changming Palace to see Her Majesty the Queen as soon as possible. Chu Qing Huang received his letter before returning to Beijing. It was not surprising that he suddenly came back. After letting Hong Yu enter the palace, her first impression was that this young man who had been away for more than 2 years, now is more appropriately called a young man. Dressed in white clothes, Sheng Shui looked like he had a bit more aura that he had never had before. His brows and eyes were calm, and he was full of the feeling of having no desires or desires. "I see your Majesty, long live your Majesty and 1,000 lives, my lord." "Get up." Chu Qing Huang looked at him carefully. "Are you okay?" "Duan Muguiu is dead," he said so, and there was no special emotion in his voice. "He died 3 months ago." Chu Qing Huang frowned, motioned for him to sit down and said, "How did you die?" "She died of illness, but I know her life was over." Hong Yu sat in the chair, frowned and sighed. "She happened to be in a beautiful place when she died. She may have had a premonition that her death was coming, so she specifically chose that place to play, and just let me burn it for her before she dies, as if she had never been in this world." Chu Qing Huang didn't know what to say and was silent for a long time. "Are you really attracted to her?" Hong Yu was startled and leaned back in the chair softly. "There may be a little bit of truth, but it's not going to make me want to die. It's just a little sad." "It's just a little sad indeed." After all, neither he nor Duan Muguiu took the red thread pulled by Yu Lao seriously. During the time he was out, Hong Yu mostly tried to persuade her to do good deeds. After all, he wanted her to live a few more years. But Duan Muguiu was often unwilling to pay attention to him and kept his own way. Hong Yu was not unhappy, but he didn't know whether he was sad about Duan Muguiu's death or her stubbornness that she was unwilling to change until her death. Minjiao presented him with a cup of tea and quickly stepped aside. "I actually want to save her." Hong Yu picked up the teacup and stared at the clear tea in the cup. "Buddhists often say that you put down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha immediately. Good deeds are done one by one. It doesn't mean that you can really become a Buddha by putting down the butcher knife. She has done so many things that she shouldn't have done in the past. I thought I could make up for it a little bit, but unfortunately I found that my efforts were in vain. She didn't have the desire to live at all. Think about it, if there is no desire, no love in life, how can a person be willing to violate his own principles and do good things?" He even felt that Duan Muguiu didn't even have the so-called principles. She doesn't think about what she should do or what she shouldn't do, or the meaning or reasons for doing something. She even says that she doesn't even have the emotions of happiness, joy. When you have nothing to ask for, it feels okay to stay with her. Once you want to ask for something and want her to change, it will undoubtedly give you a strong sense of powerlessness. Chu Qing Huang silently looked at Hong Yu in front of him. He has a completely different vibe from before. The once optimistic and lively boy has grown a lot in the past 2 years and has become mature, steady and indifferent. He may not really have the deepest affection for Duan Muguiu, but Duan Muguiu made him experience a feeling of powerlessness, which can make people depressed and doubt their own cognition. She thought of Lulu's words. Many things are the result of fate. Major events are predestined, and it is useless to force them. But I still feel sad. With her eyebrows slightly furrowed, she said calmly, "If Duan Muguiu had not come to Ziki back then, there is no way that you two would have avoided meeting each other." Hong Yu took a sip of tea and slowly shook his head. "I'm still glad that she came to Ziki. If a woman like her had stayed in northern Xinjiang, she would have been lonely when she died. It may be difficult for her to achieve her final wish. In the palace, no matter whether they were princesses, dignitaries, or servants, they were not burned after death. They were either laid to rest or thrown into mass graves. Burning corpses was a curse to the royal family, and no one would test the law. What are you going to do next? Hong Yu thought for a while. I will go home in a few days to see my parents, and then come back. I may stay in Kintian prison for the rest of my life to pray for His Majesty and the people of Ziki. Don't you plan to find a woman to get married? Hong Yu shook his head. I don't have this idea. Chu Qinghuang was silent. If he hadn't known the result in advance and heard Lulu's words beforehand, Chu Qinghuang might have persuaded Hong Yu to get married. After all, a man's final destination is to get married and establish a career. But Lulu said that he was destined to be alone all his life. In this case, maybe she not participating is the best decision. There is no point in persuading someone who knows that they cannot change something. Your Majesty, don't worry about me. I've already looked past a lot of things. Hong Yu smiled, and the gloomy look on his face faded. I feel that I may have to be involved with the way of heaven in this life. In this case, I just want to be more pure. Study hard and pray for the people of the world. Chu Qinghuang hummed, I respect your decision, but if you change your mind, just tell me, or tell me which girl you like, and I will grant you a marriage. Has your Majesty also been keen on being a matchmaker in the past 2 years? Hong Yu raised his eyebrows. When Zhan is married, Zhong Zhanjin is inseparable with Qi Yu, who is disguised as a man, and Qi Ling heard that he is coming back soon. Now it seems I am left alone. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but feel a little aggrieved. If your Majesty had been willing to look at me more and pamper me more, maybe I would have become the royal husband now. Fukang looked at him silently, with a rare look that was not full of hostility. He probably understood that Hong Yu was pretending to be relaxed at this time, so he didn't bother to argue with him. If I really take you into the harem, you might not even be able to save your life. Chu Qinghuang raised an eyebrow. Is your martial arts a match for Fukang? Hong Yu frowned. Your Majesty, are you just going to let him kill me? There have always been many innocent souls in the Emperor's harem. Could it be that they are all the Emperor's responsibility? Chu Qinghuang asked. The Emperor doesn't want to either, but he can't stop the conspiracy. As long as he wants to kill you, you won't live long. Kurha was speechless. Fukang nodded secretly. Besides, even if you have the ability to predict the future, this ability will not work on you. You cannot predict in advance when you will be killed. Chu Qinghuang said in a leisurely tone. Can you blame me? Hong Yu sighed. When it comes to responsibility, the Emperor's responsibility is actually greater. If the Emperor hadn't been a womanizer and brought so many women into the palace, how could there be so many innocent souls in the harem? How could a swarm of women snatch a man without beating him to pieces? Chu Qinghuang nodded obediently. So, as long as I support one person, I can avoid the possibility of many people becoming wronged souls. Kurha was completely speechless. I'm tired from the journey. Let's go and rest first. Yes. Hong Yu stood up and bowed slightly. I will take my leave. Your Majesty, please rest early. Chu Qinghuang walked out and watched him leave. At this time, I hope he won't put too much emotion into Duan Muguiu. Without feelings, there won't be much sadness, and the rest of your life will be easier. Kong Yu has always been heartless, and I hope it will be the same this time. Fukang put his arms around her shoulders. He will look away. Chu Qinghuang hummed and could only think like this. Your Majesty. Yuan Bao bowed and saluted. Lord Qi Yu, Lord Yu Kaiubai and Lord Lu Shen are in the imperial study. Her Majesty the Queen and the imperial concubine can pass by. Chu Qinghuang turned around and walked away, wearing a bright yellow dragon robe that exuded a noble look, and her brows and eyes quickly regained the thunderous demeanor that should belong to an emperor in a prosperous age. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, Target. Type, Mix. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 646. In May, Qi Ling returned to Beijing. He was calm and steady in his military uniform, and his sharp and aggressive aura was restrained, making people feel a sense of security like a mountain. Stepping into the main hall, he knelt down on one knee and said, "I see you in the mausoleum of your majesty. Long live your majesty! Long live your majesty! May you live 1,000 years, 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my lord." Pingshen Chu Qing Huang sat on the dragon chair, his eyes calm. After staying at the border for several years, his aura is indeed different. Qi Ling stood up and remained calm in the face of the scrutiny from the civil and military officials of the court. "Thank you for the compliment, your majesty. Thanks to your majesty's love, I am able to achieve what I have accomplished today. I should thank your majesty for your appreciation." The ministers in the DPRK were quite emotional. Only then did they finally realize a problem belatedly. When Her Majesty the Queen was the eldest princess, in addition to being beautiful, everyone in the backyard seemed to have good abilities. Wen Zhan and Shen Kongjin entered the court and prospered in the court. Zhan Hongyu has the ability to predict the unknown. Qi Ling held the post of general, stationed at the border, opened up territory and expanded the territory, not only expanding the territory of Western Qi, but also preventing Western Qi from being threatened by the northern border. Nowadays, everyone is a powerful person who stands alone. So they couldn't help but wonder whether it was Her Majesty the Queen who was wise enough to deliberately use the illusion of romance and sex to deceive the world. In fact, she arranged these capable people to be around her early, and she actually agreed. That saying about a goddess who descended from the sky and was blessed by God, even the servant who just snatched her into the house was a capable person? After these thoughts flashed through their minds, the ministers couldn't help but think that these fathers were really lucky people, having raised such outstanding sons, and they were all bastards. When the ministers thought about the bastard in their own family, they couldn't help but murmur to themselves. Maybe after they returned, they should also try to improve the bastard in the family so that the brothers could live in harmony. If the bastard had mediocre qualifications in the future, they might be able to rely on the bastard to support their appearance. For example, Mr. Wen, even if his legitimate son is like a straw bag and gets into trouble again and again, Her Majesty the Queen can see that Wen Zhan's face is out of consideration and treat the legitimate son of the Wen family lightly, and even Mr. Wen is not implicated. The hall is spacious and there are many courtiers. Chu Qing Huang sat on the dragon chair and listened to the ministers starting to use their wild imagination again. She was silent for a moment and ordered, "Go to the imperial study room later to discuss matters." Qi Ling received the order. "I obey the order. I have something to announce to you all today." Chu Qing Huang looked around the hall and said with a calm voice, "Last year's #1 scholar, Qi Yu, is a girl, and she is also the first in the history of our dynasty. Once a female champion is appointed, I will keep her by my side as a personal female official. Starting from the next imperial examination, Ziki will allow women with knowledge and ambition to participate in the imperial examination and become officials in a fair and honest manner." What? The civil and military officials in the court were shocked, and then looked at each other in confusion. Is Qi Yu a woman? This. I would like to remind all my dear friends that the imperial examination is for students from all over the world who are admitted one by one based on their true talents and learning. As long as there are women in every township, state, and city who are willing to take the imperial examination, no official shall stop or interfere with them for any reason. If anyone interferes and finds an example, he will be punished directly for the double crime of deceiving the emperor and disrupting the scientific examination. I will not give mercy to anyone who dares to test the law. Before the ministers had time to protest, the thundering edict had been issued, and the ministers had to kneel down to accept the edict. Long live my emperor! After arriving at the imperial study room and seeing the ceremony, Chu Qinghuang ordered Qi Ling to sit down and talk. Yuan Bao ordered people to serve tea. Qi Ling took off his cloak and sat aside. He relaxed a little and made a simple statement about the border defense. Chu Qinghuang and Fukang both listened to him quietly, and made some adjustments and appointments for the city at the junction of Mianzhou and northern Xinjiang. After the main business of the meeting was completed, Chu Qinghuang said, "You want to get married?" Qi Ling nodded, "Yes." No one was brought back. Qi Ling frowned slightly. She is in poor health and can't bear the hard work of traveling long distances. The reason why I rushed back to ask for your marriage is because she is too weak. She always refuses because she doesn't want to drag me down. I really have no choice but to ask for marriage. Chu Qinghuang frowned. Weak. Yes, Qi Ling was a little worried. I take decoction and medicine almost all year round. How could you, a great general, think of marrying such a woman? I just met her and fell in love with her. Qi Ling smiled bitterly. I like her, but her body is too weak. The locals call her the sick fairy. There are many people who like her, but they dare to marry her. Not many. Chu Qinghuang pondered for a moment. Have you thought it through? I have thought it through very clearly, Qi Ling said in a serious tone. She is a kind-hearted woman. She has no other problems except that she is weak. Okay, Chu Qinghuang nodded slowly. I will give you a marriage decree, as well as some rare medicinal materials in the inner treasury that you can use. You can also bring some back to replenish her body. Ingot, this one, please tell Mr. Chen about it. My slave has taken note of it. Chu Qinghuang asked, is there a famous doctor locally? Qi Ling shook his head. The borderland is not as prosperous as other cities. There are doctors with superb medical skills, but most of them focus on medicine for external injuries, internal injuries, and wind and cold. I wrote a letter to Chu Ling Chuan and asked him to take some time to go there and see if he could nurse her back. Chu Qinghuang said, I haven't seen her face, so I don't know what the situation is, so I can only let Ling Chuan take care of her. Sichuan has given the right medicine. Qi Ling stood up, knelt down and saluted, thank you for your grace, your majesty. You defend my country and the border for me, so I should do something for you. Chu Qinghuang stood up, let's go and have dinner together. Yes. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 647. Chapter 647, Feast of Mountains and Rivers, Grand Finale. The 8th day of the 7th lunar month was the day when the emperor's wife, Wei Fukang, was born. Ever since she went to Yan State to meet Fukang's parents, Chu Qinghuang kept this in mind. The whole summer passed amid the busy government affairs, and preparations for the palace banquet began in early July. On the 8th day of July, Chu Qinghuang held a grand birthday banquet for the royal wife. Fukang disagreed at first. Your birthday is on July 12th. Your Majesty's birthday banquet will be my birthday banquet. There will only be 4 days in between. There is no need to go to a lot of trouble. It's necessary. Chu Qinghuang ignored his objection. I hold my birthday every year, and I never miss a big or small banquet. I will hold it grandly for you this year, so that all the people in the world know that my emperor, my husband, is my only favorite, which prevents them from having other thoughts. A few months after returning to the palace, some ministers in the court were interested. The previous batch of older princes from aristocratic families got married one after another, and a new generation of young princes appeared again, including many handsome young men. Sitting on the throne of the queen for a day, it is impossible to avoid the people below who are eager to make a move. Even though they are restrained under strict orders, they can never completely give up their thoughts. Therefore, Her Majesty the Queen does not mind letting everyone see the importance she attaches to her husband. Fu Kang frowned, but Chu Qing Huang added, I won't have my birthday party this year, just have a simple meal. Fu Kang didn't care about his birthday at all. Rather than being busy with so many people and having troops outside the palace come into the palace to sing and sing, he would rather be alone with Nuanuan, even if he spent a day talking about love or doing something that made people happy. Isn't it better than spending a lot of time on things? But what Chu Qing Huang has decided cannot tolerate his objection. After all, Chu Qing Huang had told him before, I make the decision on big things, and you make the decision on small things. As long as it was decided by Chu Qing Huang, it was a major matter. Fu Kang had no choice but to obey, so the matter was decided happily. The palace has not been so lively for a long time. Chu Qing Huang has never been a person who likes liveliness. Except for the enthronement ceremony and the wedding ceremony, most other festivals are as simple as possible, even his own birthday is no exception. This palace banquet was the first to be held in a long time, which surprised everyone in the civil and military dynasties. After all, the queen always advocates frugality and does not like extravagance and waste. The birthday banquet is held in Guangyang Palace. Officials of the 5th rank or above in the court, as well as the family members of all 5th rank officials inside and outside the palace, whether they are the wives or children of the royal family, can enter the palace to participate in the banquet. The scene is extremely grand. Chu Qing Huang specially ordered people to invite famous opera troupes from Beijing to set up a stage to sing. The actors on the stage waved their sleeves and sang the most beautiful operas. Their postures were light and agile, and their movements were all charming. Her Majesty the Queen and the imperial concubine sat side by side on the high royal platform, holding wine in their hands and drinking together happily. On the left and right sides of the imperial platform, there are the royal family members, powerful ministers and officials, the wives of the imperial family, the legitimate sons and daughters of aristocratic families. Every time you look up casually, you can see the warm and loving scene of the empress and the imperial concubine under the bright lights. A pair as beautiful as a pair, with noble status, beautiful appearance and outstanding bearing. They are the two most noble people in the world of 11 Qi. Their relationship is so deep that no one can get involved. During the banquet, the ministers each had their own thoughts, but this did not prevent the ladies from casting admiring and envious looks at the queen and her husband. I admire Her Majesty the Queen for her unparalleled sage and wisdom, who created the prosperous age of the Western Qi dynasty. I envy the queen and her husband for their loving relationship, like a couple of gods and immortals. Ziki is lucky to have a king like Her Majesty the Queen. Chu Yunyeo held the wine cup, unable to hide her admiration in her voice. The atmosphere in Ziki has greatly improved during this period, and those stinky men no longer dare to. He casually belittles women and talks about the 3 obediences and 4 virtues all day long. Wen Zhan took the wine cup in her hand and said, "You have a special body, so don't drink recently." Chu Yunyeo said coquettishly, "Don't they all blame you?" Wen Zhan smiled slightly, his eyebrows gentle and peaceful, "Yes. They all blame me, so don't drink for the time being." "Do you think I like drinking?" Chu Yunyeo curled her lips, "Aren't you happy tonight?" "No matter how happy you are, you must put your own body first," Wen Zhan coaxed patiently. "Besides, didn't you have an appointment with your close friend for tea tomorrow?" Chu Yunyeo glanced at him. "Do you know what we talk about when we drink tea together?" Wen Zhan naturally knew. "It's just that the husband of that family is pedantic and stubborn all day long, making irresponsible remarks to his wife every day, and that the husband of that family is gentle and considerate, and is a good man cultivated in his previous life. He also said that a certain man married one lascivious concubine after another, only to be subdued by his wife, who suddenly became strong and tough. Since Her Majesty the Queen's position has been firmly established and she has proposed various measures, the ladies of the chamber and the women in the boudoir have many more topics to talk about after dinner. Indirectly, it enriches their lives. Of course, now that Her Majesty the Queen is backing her, women are emboldened. When it is time to criticize men, they are merciless. They wish they could reverse the system of 3 obediences and 4 virtues so that men can also enjoy the taste of 3 obediences and 4 virtues. However, when Jean still pretended to be stupid at the right time, how can I know about the topics between you women? Are you interested? Chu Yunyeo asked him. Call me good sister and I will tell you tonight. I don't know if a woman's personality will become strange after she gets pregnant. Yunyao used to be a model of gentleness and kindness. She was considerate to her husband in every way. She would praise her husband for his good looks, good temper, and success at a young age. She was afraid that others would not know that she married a good husband. But since she got pregnant, she had some strange ideas every now and then, especially some boudoir fun, which was really laughable. However, when Jean felt that such a change was not a bad thing, so he just let her do it, and this time was no exception. Putting down the teacup, he raised his hand and pushed a strand of hair on Yunyao's cheek behind her ear. His fingers were slender and well-defined. The fingertips touching his face were slightly warm, which made Chu Yunyao's heart beat faster unconsciously. Good sister, can you tell me what you sisters talk about when you are together? When Jean said, his voice was low and pleasant, with a hint of bewitching charm, is this okay? It's so okay. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, Chu Yunyeo would have executed him right now. With a slight blush on her cheeks, Chu Yunyeo picked up the teacup, drank a sip of tea as if to cover up, turned around and looked around. Fortunately no one noticed them. However, his brother opposite him was talking to his sister-in-law with his head down, and his sister-in-law nodded quietly. The two of them were also a perfect match. Turning his eyes to the left, many young couples at the table were smiling, as if they felt fulfilled and happy with their current lives. Chu Yunyeo fixed his eyes on the opposite side and saw Shen Kongjin, the Minister of Personnel, quietly leaving the table. Chu Yunyeo frowned. What is Lord Shen going to do? When Jean raised his eyes when he heard the words, looked at Shen Kongjin's back as he left, and turned his head to look at the imperial platform thoughtfully. Chi Yu, the female official who was originally standing beside Her Majesty, whispered something to Her Majesty, and after getting permission, she bowed and respectfully left. When Jean immediately understood. Going on a date, he said, his tone was a little subtle. He thought Shen Zongjin had some special hobbies for Chi Yu before, but it turned out that his hobbies were very normal. On the contrary, he couldn't even tell the difference between men and women. I envy the female official Chi Yu so much. Chu Yunyeo held her cheek with envy in her eyes. As a girl, she won the first place among many men and became the first female champion in Ziki. She can also work with the queen and deal with the male officials in the court without scruples. If she performs well in the future and is always reused by the queen, maybe she can be written into the history books by the historians and gain a reputation that will last forever. When Jean rubbed her head, there are too many people in this world that you envy. You don't know how many people are also secretly envious of you. Chu Yunyeo nodded slowly. Yes, she envied others for their courage, ambition, and knowledge. Others also envied her for her good background, 3 powerful brothers, marrying a good husband, and having a smooth life and enjoying wealth and glory. Everyone in this world has their own happiness. Of course, there are also unfortunate people. Most people will unconsciously envy those who are stronger than themselves, not necessarily for their wealth and glory, but also for their talent, bearing, wisdom, courage, or even luck. Often, while they envy others, they are also envied by others. Time passed little by little, and the opera on the stage ended. Officials came forward one by one to present gifts. congratulating the emperor on his birthday, praising the empress for her wisdom, and wishing the Western Qi dynasty a long and long life. The current empress governs the country well, advocating frugality on the one hand, and severely punishing corruption and bribery on the other. So tonight's gifts can be seen with the naked eye. Almost all of them are heartfelt, made by themselves, or a painting of peace and prosperity, or an embroidered picture of a prosperous country, or a gorgeous article praising merits. Of course, some wealthy dignitaries also presented a pair of jade ruyi, wishing the emperor and the empress everything they wished. Chu Qinghuang sat on the dragon throne, with noble eyebrows and eyes, outstanding demeanor, and a calm voice with hidden pressure. I have received the thoughts of all the ministers and ladies, and the emperor can also feel it. Gifts are small, as long as they are thoughtful. The peace and prosperity of the country is a big deal. I only wish to devote my life to creating a century of prosperity for Ziki. I hope that all the ministers will witness the arrival of the prosperity with me. The atmosphere reached its highest point at this moment. The ministers stood up and bowed in the direction of the imperial platform. Long live my emperor, long live, long live. Long live the emperor, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. I am willing to create a prosperous era for Ziki with your majesty, and pray that Ziki will continue to prosper and the country will be peaceful. May your majesty be healthy. May the emperor be healthy and live long. The endless blessings came one after another, with high momentum and loud voices reaching the sky. Even Chu Qinghuang, who was always aloof, was affected by the atmosphere at this moment, and her face was moved and excited. Turning her head to look at Fu Kang, she smiled and said, "How do you feel about tonight's birthday banquet, my husband?" "It is my lifelong blessing to be loved by Nuan Nuan." Fu Kang held her hand, and his lungs and limbs were full of heat. "If possible, I wish that in the next life and the next life, I can grow old with Nuan Nuan and create a prosperous era for our country." "You are really not greedy. Do you want to be emperors for generations?" Chu Qinghuang laughed. "If I have a choice in the next life, I may not choose to be an empress again." "Why? Being a queen is very tiring. Don't look at how shocking the scene of singing praises is. It makes people almost unable to control themselves and starts to drift away. However, if you want to maintain the prosperous situation and deserve such praise, you have to work hard and work diligently. The government loves the people and does not tolerate any mistakes." Chu Qinghuang sighed. "It would be better if you work harder in this life and enjoy peace of mind and wealth in the next life." Fu Kang hugged her into his arms. "I will definitely become very powerful in my next life, and I will pamper Nuanuan like a little girl." Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows. "Is that settled?" "A promise is made, and we will never break it." As midnight approached, the atmosphere of the feast gradually subsided. Chu Qinghuang stood up calmly, with a slender and tall figure, and a cold and gentle look on his face. "It is late at night. Sirs, ladies, and gentlemen, you can go home. My husband and I will leave first." Everyone stood up to see him off, and there was another shocking salute. The road to Changming Palace was opposite to the road out of the palace. Chu Qinghuang and Fu Kang gradually moved away from the crowd, away from the noise, and returned to tranquility. The couple held hands and walked slowly along the quiet palace road. The palace people followed behind them at a distance, so as not to disturb the two of them enjoying the tranquility after the prosperity. The two kept walking, and the palace lantern illuminated their parallel shadows, making their silhouettes longer, as if foreshadowing their long lives. Fu Kang Chu Qinghuang spoke, and in the extreme silence, his voice was particularly soft. "Yeah," Fu Kang responded, equally gentle. "Fu Kang exist. As long as she opens her mouth, he will definitely be there and will never leave her in this life." P.S. This book ends here. The extras are a bit messy. I'll write them wherever I think. I'll try my best to give a complete explanation of all the supporting characters. The author doesn't like torture, and likes to give all decent characters a perfect ending, so some parts may be too perfect to be true, so just treat it as our expectation for a better life. Thank you to all the readers who like this book and to all the readers who have sent gifts in this book. It is Bayazai who has followed and supported me all the way, which gave me the motivation to finish writing this book. Both finished books have both praise and criticism. Everyone has different tastes and has different levels of liking or disliking the book, which is understandable. I didn't notice any problems when I was writing it. When I look back after a while, I will find that many plots could have been handled better. However, as an author, I still hope that my readers will speak calmly when evaluating, and try to avoid attacking the author or the protagonist. Every reader has different tastes, and no author can satisfy everyone. Fortunately, whether you like it or not, it is over here. Every time you finish a book, you will feel a sense of relief. The next book will probably be released in May, and I will not write a sequel. Jin Yu's story will be left to the imagination of the treasures. I have already had a preliminary idea for the new book. In my opinion, it is more touching than the previous two books. I don't know if you will like it or not. See you in May.